Hi, I'm Aron, and I am CTO of Olio Apps. What we've been doing here is doing an all-company hackathon. Looks like there's about 14 people, 15 people all hacking on the same project. And that project is roughly 3 weeks old from inception, design, and planning. And the last 2 days have been about executing the actual coding. Yeah, it's a hackathon. Basically, a giant swarm is what we're doing. Well, it's actually known also as an agile swarm. It's basically, in my practice of it, an accelerated form of the agile process. Planning the actual goals, forking development out, and then joining frequently, integrating all the time. There's some unique roles in an agile swarm where, we have the integrator role. 1 or 2 persons who are continuously making sure all the pieces glue together, testing, and also taking care of the shared interfaces, like between the back end and the front end. Yeah, so we're doing that all day long. My role in this particular hackathon has been the development lead on the back end. I'm not actually an integrator, but I'm helping the integrator team a bit. But in the first part of the hackathon, which was yesterday, I did a lot of normalizing and spreading the design I did on the whole project beforehand, just thoughts and tickets. But today I'm actually focused pretty heavily on coding, which is great. I didn't check in a single line of code yesterday, but today I did check in several things. I think it's very hard for us to not have success when it comes to the actual goals of our hackathon. It was just to see all of these people with their disparate talents and their different approaches to development come together and solve significant engineering problems. From that perspective, it's been extremely successful. From what I can tell, the people love working with each other and on the project. And that is, to me, the highest barometer of success. From the perspective of actually getting the SaaS to work, I think we're going to actually get really close to the 60 or 70% mark of planned functionality, which is very significant for 2 days, from 0 to SaaS. Oh, wow. How did I find myself getting software engineering? Well, I got into software engineering because I wanted to make more computer games. That was probably the 5th grade when it came about with, I think it was Oregon Trail literally crashed in my Apple IIe, and I found the basic source code, and I got completely mystified and like absolutely entranced by it. I had to figure out how it worked out. Well, then it's been almost 35 years, and I pulled on the threads, and here I am. Well, I spent about 15-ish years in essentially the corporate America, right? From startup to publicly traded companies. And the last big company I worked at with Jive Software, one of my good buddies, Scott Becker, who is now the CEO of Olio Apps, happened to snag me on my way out. I was going through a little bit of figuring out what I wanted to do when I grew up, and he was there at the perfect time. We had lunch downtown Portland here, and he convinced me to say to join him as the second person in his project. So that's how I got in. What makes Olio Apps unique? We have a very high degree of empathy for what the customer needs, right? Both from startups and very developed large customers, right? Because I personally have been through all of that. I've been in a startup, which became a publicly traded company. So seeing that evolution and understanding what's needed at all the levels, right, has been very helpful. And that was just taking us up to my experience. Since the beginning of Olio Apps, we've been able to see 7 or 8 startups and been involved in the startup from the beginning. Same time, we've been embedded in like very large global Fortune 500 companies, right? So able to see the whole gamut of needs. And I think we're pretty unique from that. Plus, we're also essentially 2 CTOs. Scott he's a CEO in his hat, but he's essentially my co-CTO. So that's very powerful combo. Becoming an AWS partner is just a no-brainer for us, because I grew up in the land of heavyweight Java containers, and basically all the associated costs with like spooling and maintaining those things for decade. And when serverless came up, it was a breath of fresh air and a massive boost of productivity. And we just fell into using that technology stack and everything else around it. So it's just started to tell that story more and more to customers. It just made total sense to formalize what we already knew and how to practice by just getting the certifications and doing the partner programs. It's even easier to talk to customers. So that's how we got into it. Well, GenAI is very interesting. All the traditional software engineering concerns apply, including testing, right, and hardening of that. And except there's an extra bit of sort of like human intelligence that I had to bring in. That is less technologies focused to leaning on my liberal arts degree, right, which is pretty cool. And so GenAI represents a really interesting opportunity to exercise the whole engineer, in me particularly. But I have absolute faith that once the tooling catches up and the engineering practices catch up to GenAI, it's going to be like an indispensable tool for problem solving in the enterprise space. And actually, we're working on that problem right now. That's actually the purpose of this hackathon. Ahead of pace, yeah. Well, we bring in a lot of, like I said, the traditional understanding of the traditional processes of SaaS development, right? Because I grew up in that space, software as a service. So taking all that knowledge and being able to apply those disciplines, that discipline into the GenAI development space as it's been absolutely the right way, right? Fast iteration, software testing, hardening, right? Planning, all functional design, technical design, all those things, and customer validation of what you're doing. All of those are like involved specifically with the GenAI space, and I think I just really know how to leverage the prior knowledge of traditional software lifecycle related to SaaS into the GenAI space. So yeah.